Hello, everybody. Welcome back. FNATIC versus Sandbox is about to begin. There's our match of the day to kick it off, and it's a very important game. That's why it's the match of the day, right? That's how it works. Welcome back, I'm Milosh. With me are Fresh and Ollie, and we are ready for this game. Now, we preface things for FNATIC versus Sandbox. We'll keep talking about them, but now more in detail. Jack, FNATIC have a shot for the first time in what feels like forever since they knocked you out. Yes. You were ready for that.
Oh, we was talking about that this morning, Milosh, and you had to bring it up.
Yeah, of course. But since they knocked you out, Mag specifically, a player that's now back on the team, been able to carry them and the entire team forward into a spot where they could feasibly take the top two.
Yeah, it's been one hell of a journey. If you want to look all the way back since 2020.
They sucked.
They did, but they faced a lot of external factors as well. You know, playing on high ping from Australia, not being able to move to Japan, etc., etc. They're finally in Japan. Doesn't look like the roster they intended on going to Japan with in 2020. Completely different, but they're there, and they're finally starting to work through some of those issues. And actually, if you look at how they finished last season and started this season, the last 3 months have been like really good for FNATIC. They finally turned that massive corner. They're looking very good inside of this stage, and you know, there's a little part of me that is like, I kind of want them to do it. Because the expectations of the fans, of the roster, of the organisation, is that this team should be at international events, and it's long overdue.
It really is. I think my only concern for FNATIC is that they are going into tougher games now. They have had a slightly easier start to the stage in their opponents that they've been going up against, especially when you consider that Damwon is not the team that it used to be, at least in stage 2. So we know that FNATIC are now going to start getting pushed, and I think this is the start of them getting pushed and pressured, and it's how they're going to react under that pressure. Last week would have been a very different story had we not seen Mag have probably a bit of a life game. I think it would be fair to call it that.
So today versus Sandbox is even more important. Next Playday, FNATIC will be playing Talon, and that might be considered an easier game. Yeah. However, just to follow up on your point, FNATIC versus Cyclops is the first game of the last Playday, which that actually could determine everything. And then you think about Damwon versus Sandbox, the final game of the stage. That could also determine the second place team. If CAG continue on the run, which who knows if that's going to happen. Maybe Spear can put a dampener on those hopes. But let's look at FNATIC's opponents, Sandbox, on the other side. Their life here in the second half of the stage is not going to get any easier, Ollie, but this is a team that's proved to us that they can make it to majors. It's just now the next step after that.
Exactly, and it's about finding that consistency. You know, you need to be able to make it to multiple majors and to be able to place at those majors as well. Sandbox have done fantastically so far inside of stage 3, albeit they are coming into a run of, you know, tougher games, as it were, given that they're going up against FNATIC this week and CAG next week. But for me, they are a much more well-rounded roster. You know, you look at some of the players that they've got, and they have a much wider spread in those 5 categories that we tend to take a bit of a look at, whether it KD, cost, entry, rating, and things like that. There's a lot of players that are going to be in and around that conversation. Envy Taylor, good couple of clutches in there. Sile as well, fantastic, devastating on the entry. And we've already spoken about Good Boy. I mean, just look at that, 136 EPS. And
then you've only got Arakaze and Static as well. The one thing that I will say for Sandbox is they kind of remind me, if I'm going to compare this to a European team, they kind of remind me of BDS, where they are absolutely quality, and I'm not doubting that for a minute. But I don't really think they've massively got going this stage, which I think they've kind of been lucky with their luck of the draw of the fixtures of the teams that they played. I think had they come up against a CAG or a FNATIC or a DK earlier on this stage, they might have had a couple more losses than they already do. So I'm looking for them still to raise it up a couple of levels.
So can you remind us of what maps you were expecting?
I was expecting it was Theme Park or Border.
There you go. Let's see what map is on for this series. It's Theme Park. There you go. Bank being banned out, Border just before. So pretty good. Can we get a round of applause for Jack? You're applauding yourself. That's very good.
I was applauding myself.
Yeah, that's...
I'll bow down to myself.
Thank you very much. He's doing a Brendan Fraser impression here. There it is. Theme Park, 1 out here. Sandbox starting off on the attacking side. FNATIC have opted for defense. But Theme Park, from what we've seen earlier on today, it seems like it doesn't really matter where you're starting, because it's 1 time played and 64% attack rate.
Not a very well played map, is it? Yeah. You know, it's a map that these two teams have obviously saved for such an occasion. And again, you know, we talk about the attacker win rate on there and stuff. It's a little bit skewed, so we haven't seen all too much Theme Park. Of course, it was last week that we saw
FNATIC that played
FNATIC play Theme Park and Mag have an absolute live game. So it's probably a good idea from Sandbox to take, you know, FNATIC to that map, because there were blatant holes in what FNATIC were trying to do last week.
Especially on the defense.
Especially on the defense. And if Mag hadn't been there, you know, he got a massive clutch in round number 1. I think he got another clutch in round number 3.
I believe so.
Unbelievable stuff. He got a handful of plants as well. So a lot of pressure on today.
The one thing that I will say is FNATIC had struggled with attacks through stage 2. It's one thing that me and Fabian did not stop talking about. But their attacks on Theme Park last week was a pleasure to watch. So I think if they can emulate that and shore up any holes that they have in their defense, then it could be good signs for FNATIC.
Who's got to show up on defense for FNATIC? You can't keep relying on Mag.
No, you can't.
Probably Chibi. I think, you know, we highlighted Chibi in the head-to-head. Chibi and Choppy have been doing okay, and they've had their moments, but I think it's about finding that consistency. That's the key word in all of this, is consistency. If they find that little bit of consistency, it shouldn't ever rely on Mag getting those clutches. It should be the front line that wins you the games. So I think that's what FNATIC will be looking for.
The Sandbox have the intel from last week. That's a massive boon for them, Ollie. But is there anything else that stands out that they can play to their advantage?
I think that Sandbox just need to go in and focus on their own game, not really get too drawn into that sort of counterplay style. You know, we often talk about teams that will go and try and, you know, really counter and almost get tunnel visioned in what they're trying to do. I think you could go and just play a very standard theme park against FNATIC, and you would see good results based on the flaws that we saw last week in their defenses. So realistically for Sandbox, just go and keep running through those motions and try and put a lot of pressure on early doors.
Sandbox actually played Theme Park twice in Berlin, up against FaZe and G2, so two pretty good teams.
Tough, yeah.
They lost both of them. Not too badly though. 5-7 against FaZe, 6-8 against G2.
Pretty good.
Struggled to attack, but they were very, very good on the defense. So I'm kind of looking at this game as well. FNATIC struggled to defend, Sandbox struggled to attack. So that half's going to be a bit hit and miss. But then FNATIC love to defend. FNATIC love to attack. Sandbox love to defend. So that half is going to be great.
FNATIC love to attack. I never thought I'd be hearing that, but here we are. Ollie Fresh, thank you very much. Had a slight delay, but everything is ready to go. Sandbox versus FNATIC is in. We got Hapanam. Take you through it. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milosh. And as we are about to get into the game, there is a lot at stake because the winner can continue their chase and the loser is probably going to cut themselves out of that top 2 position.
It's spicy. It's a very spicy day. Today we find ourselves finally cooking towards teams being locked in. NAL have story done together. Things have otherwise fell into place in other places and it's starting to form. But here, with only 2 teams escaping the danger and the precipice of failure, who will be the success story?
And not just that, there's also less playdays to try and get your points at. So every game weighs even more heavy than it would in NAL or the European League, for example. And that is something to keep in mind as well. Currently, Sandbox is in 2nd place. FNATIC is chasing in 3rd. These are the 2 teams that have the best opportunity of becoming the 2nd team to find themselves in a good spot for a major qualification. First, of course, Cyclops, who's currently 3 points away from almost everybody else in the league. They have a win to spare before they would be finding themselves in some trouble. And these 2 teams are trying to battle it out to find out who the 2nd team will be in a bit of safety.
Bye, Nook.
Yeah, we've seen it happen in the European League quite successfully on a map like Theme Park, so not going to see any play here as of now. Twitch to be removed as well. I kind of understand, especially Throne Room. If you're not going to go for any impact, you want to get those Twitch drones in. We also saw how effective they can be in quickly taking care of some ADSs and grenades to follow afterwards. Yazami is also not something you will wonder too much about, of course, with the landscaping she can do. And we have one more band to go.
That is how it goes.
That's how it works. Mira.
It's a mirror. Yeah, it's a fair enough set of removals here. It's pretty standard, pretty straightforward. I think one of the things that we sort of have expectations for here is Sandbox. They should be in a bit of control here. The true test, if we're finding ourselves on a sort of 3-3-half, 4-2-half, FNATIC, they got a bit of a drive depending on how they're winning it. We know Mag can and has played off a couple of big clutches on the previous Playday. From the side of FNATIC, I think we need a bit of early control because Sandbox are a team, they'll set up control, they'll take a really good balance of control and then suddenly you find yourself knocked to the wayside.
Yeah, for sure. And both these teams also know, you know, they know the other team, they will respect them as well, and they realize what is at stake. So it's to some extent a decisive game if you look at the end of the stage and end of the year, because we are nearing that point as well. And that means that neither of these two teams wants to make any mistakes. But when you try and play carefully, that's often why or how small mistakes do start to slip in. So it really will be who's taking that first charge, who's taking control of that map on the first very get-go, and maintains that through potential timeouts that come in as well. But we're in throne room first. It is going to be the bottom floor. It is quite difficult to attack. We do see the extension into barrels, though, with the rotation that has been made, which gives the defenders a bit more freedom of rotating back. You have to be careful that the attacking team, which is Sandbox in this case, doesn't instantly take control of barrels. And Charles opening up that window might indicate that they're looking to go for it.
Well, a bit of a stretch here under the control. As I said, it was something where we really need to see how FNATIC's defense stacks itself up with the performance that was here previously against, obviously, the other Korean team. Spear Arakaze. He's leaning in with the first bout of pressure towards Chibisu, playing around the top of Dragon, seeing how much time they can sort of pull out of the approach here. You want to waste as much of this Sandbox setup as possible, trying to force them into being caught on the opposite end, which is where Good Boy's got himself set up. Early throw of the grenade, bounce around the corner, maybe debate a bit of a play with this. C4 cooked and ready, primed underneath. As soon as they think the entrance has slipped it through onto Cafe, will they get the call?
Definitely have been spotted out by a drone, so Sandbox should be aware of the fact that the C4 had been pulled. The boys chasing down that drone now, but decides better off it. Goes for a rotate around as Envy will find that first kill as Lily removed off the board. Gonna try and find a second right here. Walks right into his gunfight here, and that is Chibisu gone as well.
Had the expectation there, the Ash of Envy Taylor. It's not the most common sight seen from this roster, but it's a successful one in terms of the lead in. Choppy is at least able to get a bite back there, gain some control back over Dragon Door. You can see they've still got the stretch, but you're looking at just over a minute. Another FNATIC player falls. Isle is able to take care of Mag. There's Ramu with a huge swing round. Almost doesn't get the full connection there. Does get picked up as that, but there's Choppy with a bit of a response. A 2 versus 1, just over a minute, 10 seconds. Took pretty much everybody out of the engagement. Static slipped one way. They're going to the opposite side of split as well. Static's going to see if he can try and stick it. Shiles watching the rotate through. Choppy can't quite get the stretch in the range with the C4. Doesn't know the plant's going down, a post plant. And he's stuck on the wrong side of a door. Swings through, pre-fires the top of the angle. A little bit too sharp. He knows they're either side, and he doesn't really have the time to go for a proper rotate. He wants to force just one of these engagements out. If he can just get lucky once, then suddenly he can turn this around. There's nothing that's being handed to him by the guns of Sandbox either side, tucked behind the throne itself, sort of baiting on the door. Choppy suffers a bit more, but not really much you can do there.
He had a great round, we have to say. Managed to pick up some important kills for the team of FNATIC, but lost side control. And at that moment in time, when there's one either side of your one door, there's nothing he could do at that moment. You walk in, you will be shot at from 2 different angles at the same time. You gotta hope, as you said, you find a lucky headshot on one so you can challenge the other. But none of that was meant to go through. So Sandbox, they will win their first attacking round instantly onto Armory Throne. We mentioned it before, it is quite a difficult site to attack, but as FNATIC was being picked apart bit by bit. It was Sandbox that managed to take control, and nobody really had to worry about Choppy, who was playing around that site. So, different site choice now coming up. We are headed a floor up from where we just were, which is the Bunker Daycare. Extension into Initiation probably will not be as wide as Initiation would be into Bunker Daycare, if that will be the bomb site. This one will revolve more around the arcade balcony and maybe making sure you can hold on to Cafe and Break Room, as those, of course, are quite pivotal points of the attacks if they do manage to get in there.
5 seconds left.
All right, Sandbox, you're off to a good start here. But as I said, the test is on FNATIC's clutch capabilities. They're able to pull themselves the even half and then really put the pace onto the side of the attack on their previous showing here, but it did boil down to some sort of clutch moments on the end and a fantastic performance from Mag throughout the day. Is it lessons learned though? I guess that's always the danger of doubling down on a map, is just how much Sandbox might have been able to sort of piece apart from the compatriots that played you the other day to see what otherwise you can get from this. And you know, it's not the sort of most common showing from the side of Sandbox, who unfortunately found themselves drifting around Bank for a couple of weeks.
And found themselves in Theme Park, looking to set themselves in. For now, it will be first place, but of course, Cycle still plays. And it seems like the attack will be coming down from the cash side and from the monitors, headed in towards initiation and the office. A bit of a split, of course, on the other side of the map as well, with the RC Roteros taking care of some utility hatches for now, but will potentially expand later on. But Child below, having 2 grenades in pocket, is looking to find one of these heads, looking through one of that vertical situations that have been created. That grenade gets pulled. That should have been heard, but that bounces right on him. Lily just barely lives.
They're still trying to fight the angle, though, and put as much of themselves into it as possible. Gun can do a lot of damage from the right place, and Shile's well aware of it, so he's going to pull himself back, try and go for a slightly alternate take here. They've still got a lot of work left to do elsewhere. They're pre-firing everywhere, and they've got an Amaru underneath a hatch, but really it's going to make a lot of noise, so a lot of noise has to be made elsewhere. They might assume that it's the window. The hatch could be the surprise factor here. He's hoping he gets a freebie before he follows up with anything else dangerous, but this is now the start of the danger. The man with the glasses will have himself focused up. They're ready and ripped and torn and go. They're up. They're going to go for the swing. They missed the first player, though. Well watched by Mag. He had that caught out. Lily gets one on the top of the stairs and one more for good measure. Arcade Stairs is falling into their favor. MV Taylor a little bit late to the party, and everybody else has already left. He hops out of the window, realized things haven't quite made the connection there on the quick attempt, and has to go for a very long rebuild.
Yeah, it's not going to be continuing down through the break room there. It has been spotted out by Camera 1 and Camera 2. Both have been taken care of, but they know exactly where it's going to be coming from now. 40 seconds. This is more of a timeout as well, you know, having a bit of an opportunity to talk whilst MV Taylor is looking to, well, try his best to make something happen, but the time running lower and lower with every second that passes. There's still 4 members of FNATIC he needs to find, and they're all around him in the meantime already. On a side vault, one onto the back of the cafe door. He's going to be trying to pepper in some bullets just every now and then, but won't be connecting as of yet. And as we find ourselves at only 10 seconds left, it is fair to say that FNATIC will be taking this round home and will be equalizing that scoreline up on the top floor. Well read when the Candelas came out. It's often the call sign of, hey, the push is coming through right now. Mag watching the hatch is crucial as well, because that would have been just a knife in the back of the defense that could have ripped them apart.
That was it. That was the weight of the audio. It was a well put together push there, but they just had no awareness of FNATIC. They had themselves locked in. They knew where they wanted to go, whether they thought that there'd be one less person inside the site. If, you know, they'd swung right instead of left, then at least they might have been able to put some bullets into a shotgun that was otherwise firing at you. Sandbox went for a take, and the take was red. There's sort of no two ways about that. And it's something where we can find ourselves back into a bit of a balance here. And back, rotating our way round on the sites. We'll see, I suppose, now if they can try and actually put some momentum behind it, keep themselves on the top floor. They're going to try and get themselves on a technical tertiary here with the extension over to initiation. Sandbox, they've got the Ossa currently. It's not the most out there sort of play for them. So like MV Taylor on the Ash, but they've moved off to Nomad for now.
I do like the Ossa for this site, though, especially when you're stuck on a balcony outside, you know, walking and watching into the cash room. The Ossa can provide you some safety, but sometimes the actual issue you have is getting onto that balcony, because every now and then you have some players in every single region you can imagine that look to go a bit spicy towards the outside. They're opening up the windows, they're opening up the doors, they're looking to take any challenge they can and make life difficult for you to actually get on there. And sometimes we see efficient kills to be gained there. For now, it doesn't seem to be the case, and that allows Erikazi to just walk up where he wants to be and use his Ossa talent shields as they are necessary. Think of the monitor room, for example.
Over the top, Sandbox, and they'll see if they can try and pull this one back to a bit of their favor and momentum. Theme Park does sometimes have a habit of bouncing at the minute. It used to be known as a very, very strong defensive side. Now, I mean, it's probably a little bit more even-handed by some of these teams in the current meta that we've got driving it. You can get yourself locked in with a good idea of how to lock out anyone else that's trying to do these long angle watches, and that causes plays like this sort of steady approach here over the side of Cash. You give themselves a lot of room, a lot of pace, and a lot of angles, because you know they're likely going to be watching them from, as you can see with the openings, 2 or 3 rooms back, which once upon a time would have just been turtled and locked off.
I mean, as I mentioned, that balcony is going to be where one of those talent shields is placed, so you can at least have a bit of a challenge on towards the actual office room as we find 3 Sandbox players now stuck on the top of Dragon here. Arakaze just setting up that shield as Ramu walks past. I believe it has been destroyed by an impact, which he instantly tossed afterwards. Yes, it has been. And that means it's going to be even harder now to take control of monitors and try and get into initiation from there.
First grenade caught out just there onto the computer doorway. They're going to see if they can keep trying to put pressure onto initiation. It's a Flores drone that's going to get a bit of revenge. You take one of our shields, we'll take one of yours. Again, forces these long angles to be a little bit more awkward. They're doing their best to try and take this off. There's no impact angle. Them to be able to try and get this. They're not going to try and trick it, but they're going to hold off and pull back at the last possible second. Chibisu gets Child. They're charging their way through, and Lily is able to get one more on the cross angle. They've suddenly suffered from the huge back end all the way on the side of bunker. Grenade takes care of Ramu. At least one for the trouble, but still 2 lost on the approach against the breach. They did some of the work there, but without anything to try and push themselves further. It turns into this, forcing yourself into these angles, held and watched. They've at least replaced the Nossa shield from the far end, but there's still a lot of work to do, and that is not an easy wall to get through.
It definitely isn't. There is a bit of a breach, but it is going to be a vault through. That is not going to be very helpful for Arakaze. He needs to find a way to actually walk in, as they're all going to be completely blinded right now. That might offer up an opportunity for him to set himself up, and exactly, he does that. That's going to be a shield. He now has the opportunity to go for a plant as soon as the fire next to him is out. He tries to punch the shield to shatter it, to not give them any information. That's a C4, but the kill came through. FNATIC shut him down before, and they need to go aggressive now.
Unbelievable. They've been able to pull this plant off here. FNATIC just couldn't get the snap in time. It's only one player left, FNATIC. He doesn't quite get the angle there. An important bite back. It was unfortunate, obviously, that the Ossa shield did not function as it's supposed to and break on the punch. They got the plant off, but it does reveal there is only really one person watching at that point. It makes it trickier to get a bit of a response there. FNATIC, they pull it back, they clutch it out. They sort of let the plant go down and then fought back onto that single player. 2-1.
I just want to say, Lily put a very good position in the bunk bedroom right there. They realized the majority of the push is coming down from the monitors, from security, so that's why you extend in there. You have a longer angle, you have some extra reinforcements to hide behind. You're playing now with a TCSG with a big scope on top. Well, you're just gonna be taking out some sitting ducks in there. And he did exactly that. Found 2, suddenly massive favor for FNATIC, and he said it, they managed to get the plan down, maybe not under the cover of the shield that they wanted. Luckily, they managed to take down Lily before the C4 went off, otherwise that would have been a very quick round end. But yeah, they knew exactly that one was planting, and the other one would be pulling security out there, so nothing really too worried about for FNATIC in that round. Managed to stick it out well as they head back towards the throne room now. The one side they lost.
Memories. FNATIC, 2 rounds up. They find themselves slightly in a better stead of that opener. Sandbox was still able to pull a plant off there. It's not entirely overhanded, but it's not that we haven't really been able to see them put a drive in here onto these holds, onto these sort of, you know, attacks and defenses. FNATIC have been stressed, but they've kept a bit of a cool. I kind of expected Sandbox to put a bit more pressure on them, to be honest. I wanted to see Sandbox sort of take the lessons learned from the previous showing here of FNATIC and really apply the stress that Spear were able to get a couple of those rounds in and put that sort of decisive moment. We're having a couple more FNATIC players show up earlier than we did last time, but still. The start over the side of Cash. And they're looking once again for Chibisu in this close quarters position, this time in the role of the Mozzie.
Going to be quite stuck in just a second. The window has just been opened up on the top of Dragon. The door on the balcony is now receiving some pressure as well. If they do realize that Chibisu is still out here, he will be isolated. And I'm not quite sure if I just saw someone near top of Dragon already. Could be mistaken there. But he's definitely still trying to go for a bit of a pixel peek onto the player, and we'll find him as well. Good boy taken out. And that is a tight angle held successfully for FNATIC. He finds a second, as a third was coming around the corner just momentarily as well.
I mean, that's it. That is what you got to do in that sort of position. You're playing your life, but at the same time, taking as many of theirs on the way out the door, the pixel hold onto that door as well. They were just sort of setting up for a Sandbox take there. As you said, the third player was on their way around, and FNATIC was trying to watch from the far end. They had the one dropping from computer, and it just... rotten timing led to that turning into 2 1 versus 1s rather than a 3 versus 1. And they're allowed to escape at the end of it as well, which is a massive disaster here on this round for the side of Sandbox. A minute 40, and all they've got to show for it is 2 graves.
And, you know, there was some utility they might have been able to use. And, of course, there might be a thing, you know, peeker's advantage. But if you are holding that, you have a white background that suddenly changes color, it's very easy to respond to it. Whereas the attacker, good boy, he was coming around the corner, but you don't really see that much change as you're coming around that corner. So you really needed to be sharp there and, well, didn't quite hit that mark. So well done by Chibisu playing his advantage there as he was holding that tight angle. And now Mag is ready to toss that C4 over the wall if they do decide to go for a breach onto maintenance.
Oh, well, they're sort of setting themselves up for this. The drive around on the back and the end of thrown here. There's obviously the kite that can potentially play against this in the manner that they're doing with a C4 ready to loop over the top. They have a bit of the stun. There's the C4. It drifts a bit too wide and the breach comes together and there's Static picking up Mag in the meantime. They just got themselves tucked on the close angle. Envy Taylor finds Lily. Suddenly, they got 2 bodies, but only 20 seconds. Oh no, Shyle takes care of Envy Taylor on the far end. Everything started to look so good and then everything started to look so bad. A 3 versus 1. The C4 is pitch and shot out of the wind. But here, just tapping a pistol at nothing.
And then you get back into the round and an unfortunate team kill happens. And you lose all multi-directional pushes that you could have been setting up because you had one on barrels. You removed that yourself. It happens. But after that, it's just free reign for FNATIC to get back into it. And a tactical timeout to be called. Maybe understandably so by Sandbox.
They need to.
They need to.
Things are slipping away. The communication, as I said, you know, the opening of that round, it was they wanted a 3 versus 1. It turned into 2 1 versus 1s, and they lost both of them. Then at the end there, the team kill, it's just a bit of a disaster of a round. And at that point, you have to sort of put the brakes on. You have to put the brakes on, have a conversation and be like, listen, something is slipping right now, and if we don't talk about it, more rounds will slip.
Yeah, and that's the right call. And of course, we are playing on Theme Park, right? And normally, I would say if you get 2 rounds on the attack, you will find yourselves in a good spot, right? You have a good opportunity to bring back throughout that second half. They already found 1 round. They're looking to find 1, maybe even 2 more. See if they can really push that first half to the limit. As I said, like currently 1 round. So they want at least an extra 1. 2 would be perfect in this moment in time. But FNATIC, they've been starting to switch on more and more. They are able to bring the replies and the answers to whatever is being set up in front of them. If it is Chibisu just holding a tight angle, playing his life and getting away with it due to Sandbox not using all of their like available utility, either manpower or grenades or anything else, right? Or if it is because a small mistake gets made and they just capitalize of that the fullest by retaking barrels instantly, by pushing someone through split, and keeping them in bay at Dragon. And this stuff you cannot let happen in Sandbox. You need to be on top of that. This first of all.
Yeah.
As I said, it's like a light background, and it suddenly changes color. It's very easy to reply to that. But you need to have the reaction speed, and it's exactly what Chibisu had.
I said 3 rounds from the side of FNATIC, probably looking good. I'll be surprised if, you know, they struggle to get any more, to be honest. Sandbox, they've got to have a hell of a talk here because it's not so much that FNATIC are playing miles better than they were. Sandbox are underperforming right now. Sandbox haven't really been able to find the connections that they would usually do well. I think that round sort of exemplifies it, and you hope that it's, you know, the bottom of a dip for them, and they've been able to sort of get past this and try and bring themselves back round into being a little bit more directly competitive. Here, it's going to start with a bit of pressure coming up the back end of this. Obviously, last time we saw this fight onto Thorn, it started underneath, and they tried to get the angle with the grenades, did a lot of damage. This time, it seems like they might try and force the fight a little bit more rather than the ammo retake.
This time there's also an ADS on the top of the arcade stairs there, so if they do decide to open up a bit of a vertical hole and try and bounce a grenade up there, it might be caught on the first attempt. And you see, it's being pinged currently. Is that a shotgun in the hands of Static? It is. So they're going to shotgun it and instantly get the grenade through, but that's going to be caught. So no real worries there. ADS will be cleared out by the RC Retiro, but his life will be spared.
Ooh, Shyle takes a lot of damage from the swing through. That grenade doesn't quite get Lily. Split-second difference on the cooker, and that is a man absolutely sent out, but instead he rebuffs the smoke, keeps him safe from a swing round on the back end, takes the kill onto Shyle, and I mean, it's another disappointing moment there. They still had a grenade in the pocket there, the honor that will no longer be loosed. Sledge is one left. Envy Taylor, he was trying to make a bit of a sneaky appearance from the back end. That gets caught out. No more grenades, no more use, and they're still holding the top of Arcade Stairs. 2 minutes. A lot of utility. Once again, all they've done is lose a body from it. There's a body close here on the swing, on the door. As the meantime, Arakaze's gone down. There's Mag. Takes care of Envy Taylor, keeps the back end locked. The buck at least gets picked back up, but still, that's, I believe, another victim to the angle at the top of Arcade Stairs.
It is, and as Lily's going a bit aggressive right now, trying to take Cafe under control, they are pushing up the Arcade Stairs here. That was the only point the shotgun was going to be very helpful, but he will be traded out. That means it's only up to Arakaze now. He has been DBing out the 4. That leaves him on 20 HP in a 1v2 situation. As the C8, no more flashbangs in pocket, needs to go for a reload. Just slow him down momentarily. 25 seconds on that clock. It is plenty of time to make something happen, but that means he needs to continue pushing. Gives away his position. That's a very tight angle he did not see right there. Gets swung on by the side. Misses the opportunity to go for the gunfight onto Mag. And Chibusu comes around the corner from the yellow stairs. Will lock it off, and that's another round for FNATIC.
It's another frustrating moment there for the side of Sandbox, and I think that's the thing, is that, as I sort of said earlier on in that round, they're just not connecting with the game.
This is the second Sandbox timeout in a row now.
Did they have a timeout before?
Literally the round before this.
The first one. Yeah, no, that's what
okay.
I'm thinking. I think it was called at the wrong time.
I am so
now
confused.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being
I don't know
defused
what's
by
happening.
attackers.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what's happening.
We'll hit you with the news when the news hits us.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it still gives us time to talk about the things that are going on for Sandbox here, but it's frustrating. You can see it in the play. You can see it in how things are coming together. As I said, FNATIC are playing well. Yeah. I don't want to undercut how well FNATIC are playing this. This is an improvement for my money on their previous performance on this map. All of them are sort of stepping up. They're really finding their feet on these defenses, and there's a sort of connection between the 5 players that I don't think we had the last time we were watching them on this map last week. They have definitely sort of hit the boards and gone back to it and gone, we know what we can improve, and they're proving it. Sandbox at the same time, they're struggling. They look a little bit wind out of their sails. They sort of look how they did around stage 1 before they had a little bit of a roster change. That energy that they've been able to sort of coast on is sort of dipping at the worst possible time.
That's it. I think FNATIC is looking very steady. Everything just seems to be connecting for them. There's nothing going wrong. Whereas if you look at Sandbox, well, they have the right IDs. I like the fact that they are opening up with a shotgun, instantly send the grenade right through to basically give almost no time for someone to explain. But it's just that the ADS is there. And like, then they try a different push, and then there is just a player that's just gone unlooked. Or you have, you know, the door that you're putting pressure from. You're trying to set yourselves up for a 3v1 push against Chibusu on the half-only cash. And Chibusu just takes you both out when you did not expect it. It's just, everything seems to be going wrong for Sandbox, whereas FNATIC is on a very steady pace, not making any major mistakes that Sandbox can capitalize off. And that is something that is very frustrating, and I do not know how you fix that in the middle of a game, because that could just be like siege timing, you know, how it could be against you the entire day. This could be one of those things where it's like nothing is really just connecting in the game. And what can you do to fix that in the middle of the game? I think there's very little you can do. Just try and reset in these kind of moments and see if you get out of it better. But if it's just not connecting today, then I don't know what to tell you. It's like,
you're the color, you're the analyst. You have to work this stuff out.
See, I have been in these positions as well when I was playing ranked. Not quite the same stakes as this is. But if it's just not working, then it's not working. You need to find a way with the limited time you have, because every round that passes is a round you've lost.
Yeah.
To see if you can get back into the rhythm that works for you. And for now, FNATIC is just doing everything almost perfectly here. And as Sandbox is, well, you know, having a pause now and having a bit of a chat, all you can do is hope that they find something that works out for them.
FNATIC is making Sandbox attacks look like how FNATIC attacks used to look.
Yeah, basically, it looks like nothing is connected to some extent. And again, there was moments of greatness there. Not talking about Chibisu getting that double kill, but bringing it back to a 3v3, opening up the wall, basically having no one left on site to worry about, and then that team kill happens. It's just these small moments that just mess up the entire round for them. And that needs to be ironed out. But I'm not sure if you can do that within a tactical timeout. Or a rehost, for that matter.
Or whatever this may be.
Or whatever this is, because we still don't know. I see rehost on the board, so I assume it is.
I hear noises.
I hear noises of players joining, so...
Noises.
But if we look at FNATIC, I mean, they're holding their ground. They're not over-rotating. You saw it there at the arcade stairs. The Thorin player receives a grenade, stays alive. Second grenade, just pulls back slightly, gets back into challenging and finds the Yana kill. They don't fall back. They hold their ground. They make Sandbox work for it, but as they try and work for that, like, territory, they lose their lives due to, well, FNATIC fighting back.
Yeah, it's...
Basically.
And, you know...
They're not catching them on rotates.
No. It's the sort of... It's just perfectly read by FNATIC. There's no two ways about it. They've got themselves in these positions. They're not overextending. They're not playing sneaky little corners. They're not diving themselves into fights. They are locked in. And they'll get a call that, yeah, okay, you know, Envy Taylor's top of Dragon. Then they'll rotate mag round to initiation to just sort of go, okay, I've got it. I'll watch this, and if I die, we know he's coming, and if I kill him, then we've killed him. You know, and then, but they're not entirely throwing themselves into these 1v1 challenges or these sort of scrappy engagements that didn't become a habit, but maybe a problem. Hey, we're back.
We are back for the last round of the first half. Last opportunity for Sandbox to put a second round onto the board here. I don't know how I got Sandbag in my head.
I have no idea.
I mean, we got Sandbox. There we go. I don't know how to turn it. There you go. Excuse me.
That's the name of the team.
It's the name of the team.
You've casted for
many times.
A long time.
But yeah, Sandbox did just need to try and find an extra round here. And we can pull up a couple of examples where FNATIC was just like the Amaru, for example. Mag still being out there, just shotgunning him down as soon as he comes through the hatch. The Amaru was meant to be the knife in the back that was able to open up the ground for the rest of the team. It fails. They need some sort of play-make potential that works out, that opens up an opportunity onto the side, and then actually go for a plant and a post-plant. Because we've seen the plants, the post-plants have been kind of meh. So let's see what they cook up for this round. As we have started in the meantime. Extension into Duncan Daycare from initiation. So if they do attack from cash room and monitors again, you'll run into these long angles. So maybe Sandbox, they need to adapt and go for bunk instead.
Well, the adaptation might come down with a combination of good boy and a glass. They're not hiding it. They're not being subtle about the way that they want to try and put this pressure up. They've got a couple of smokes. They've got the Os shields as well. They're going to see if they can at least try and drive one more little bit of success before the turn of the half comes against them. Choppy, he's playing the aggressive point at the top and the peak of the sort of cash swing here. He's going to hold it for as long as he can, and you hope, if you're a Sandbox fan, that they don't make the same mistake. They're going to instead sort of monitor, meter, and hit him where it hurts, with multiple people trying to hit him at once. The long extension, the steady drone out, these long angles that we talked about before that theme has sort of become on the second story, and seeing if you could try and find a fight on the other end of it. There's the traces, there's the bullet, and a little dabble dance of dodging, ducking, and weaving, but not enough to entirely force them out.
Setting up some extra measures there with those air jabs. Stop them from going a bit too aggressive through cash, whilst they're looking for an entry. They're looking for a head that is overstaying their welcome a little bit. Meantime, you hear these RC Reteros going off as well, or at least some form of explosives. Taking out some pieces of utility, hoping that that will be a difference maker, and that will find one, maybe two. Both of them. Yeah, and that Selma that goes off now is going to be taking out an extra canister as well. Should be removing most, if not all, of the denial that was inside.
That's it. That is a lot of denial around the default plant spot that is gone. Still no pressure that's coming around onto the back end, so those players that are playing around bunk they're safe for now to do this long angle that was so successful for them before. They're sort of saying, come on in if you think you're hard enough, and it's down to Sandbox to prove that they are. First smoke pops its way around. They're holding the close angle, hoping a swing comes on the back of it. Choppy isn't quite doing that as of yet. There's a Glaz that's fishing further and further around the corner. A bit of an impact EMP, and the hop over the close wall with the pre-fire means that they're now stuck in and seeing if they can get the plant down. No cover from it, but Chibisu does find Charles on the back end. The C4's over the top. It doesn't quite get the catch. Envy Taylor, in fact, gets the double right through onto Bunk. They did send the player. The Nomad dropped inside the Bunk side there, and well, they did enough to stop the plant down. As I said, there wasn't quite a presence on the back end. A single Thorn in the side at the time of the plant there that just hopped their way in, I think, via the hatch in the corridor. Yep, you can see where all the bloodshed's built itself. They were able to do just enough. The pick up here by Ramen and Chibisu. Well, it doesn't last very long. Static shows up. Sandbox get a second.
Exactly what I said. They need to send someone over towards the bunk and daycare area so they can take care of that backline that is holding them back so much. You stop them from throwing those C4s, you stop them from going aggressive and retaking ground that way, and they find themselves around a second one of the game, and now they'll find themselves into the defense where they can make the difference, where they can start pushing back towards an equal scoreline and potentially even a match point themselves. A reminder for everybody that the percentage of making it to the major of the team that loses out here today is going to massively drop. Even though Sandbox currently has 1 extra point than FNATIC, FNATIC wins this in regulation. That is going to be a full 3-pointer, putting them to above. Almost a full game ahead. So, as we keep on saying, Emmy, this might be one of those 6-pointers.
A classic.
A classic.
A classic 6-pointer, and I think the thing about this game is as well, if this starts to dip away from Sandbox, you're suddenly looking at not cemented, but a dangerous potential double Japanese sort of push through here onto the next major. Yeah, this sort of setup from the back of Berlin, which was 2 Korean teams.
Just to balance it all out, you know, as all things should be.
It's so competitive.
It is competitive. And we need to keep that in mind as well, that, you know, FNATIC has been getting better. Cyclops has been getting better. Diamond Kia has fallen off a little bit compared to their last stage. Reject is pushing themselves up the rankings as well. So, like, APAC North suddenly became a whole lot more interesting as Stage 3 started.
All right, FNATIC, can you push this one over the line? Your attacks last time around was solidly a sort of locking you in to the victory and the pressure there. It was a sort of even-handed opening half that really drove you in on the second side. That really should have been a good point take, but it's Chibisu that's able to win that one out there. Takes a half full of damage, does get picked up by Static and popped off, but really, Good Boy should be alive right now to celebrate that.
Yeah, it should have been a 5-4 for Sandbox in this situation, not a 4-4. At least they got the trade out. That is at least a bit of help, and hoping that they can build off that. As the phone calls are going off, they're ready to start pushing in elsewhere. Is that a player inside a break? It is a player inside a break. Wasn't quite sure if it was below or above. The hatch drops are coming through, and that will be the top floor slowly being taken into control by FNATIC.
Yeah, as soon as that flash came around, you saw them take the drop onto the hatch. It's a bit of a risk, but at the same time, so is the chance of a swing around. They might be watching the window around oil, unless you've got it sort of covered and locked in. Mags there, trying to see if they can get the back end of Sadik, who's already gone at this point. The steady control over the top. Finally, that gets opened up. That serenity of barrels before has been removed from the option of Sandbox here. They're steady on. 2 minutes gone, 2 minutes sort of ticked by, and a trade on either side, but now FNATIC can angle themselves towards the side itself, something that we didn't get too much of from the side of Sandbox on their swings.
No, for sure. But FNATIC still have a long way to go. They might be angling themselves towards it, but there's still players around. Shao will be taken out by Mag from the bathroom. That was going to be a massive one. The outlines there confused me for a second as they stuck around. But that's going to be an opening up towar's the yellow stairs wall right now. That they can open up, and as Mag steps into the third goo mine. He's following all of them. Yeah, he's
finding them with his feet. He's face-checking goo mines.
He's just making sure that none of his team has to worry about it anymore afterwards. Okay, so that's going to be the hatch open up, and then one Selma used onto the yellow wall, I believe, to give themselves some versatility here.
Do they think someone's there? Seems to be the idea. Envy Taylor Oh, 15 seconds. When's he going to strike? Now, he's able to get at least one off the back. They've dropped the hatch on side split and dropped inside split almost instantly. Mag and Lily, all that's left, they're trying to find a way around, but there's a crouch player lying down. The kid's cold. And that is Sandbox. Just been able to win it out there by time. They had themselves set up with a couple of traps and a couple of different power play pockets to remove them from the board. But FNATIC, for what was a little bit of a pacey start, tapered and unfortunately fell.
Might have been a bit too long they spent on getting that top floor under control and not really working on any horizontal direction like barrels or getting the entirety of that bottom floor cleared out, but the actual site, because there was still roamers around. That did manage to pick up a kill in the end there. But as you said, timing being the most important factor there. So that is something they can work on for the remainder of this half. I mean, again, Theme Park is, historically speaking, a defense-sided map, so not winning your first on Armory Throne is definitely not the biggest of deals. If you manage to find your 2 rounds and potentially 3 elsewhere, Bunkin Daycare up next is a bit more accessible for the attackers. Especially if you manage to utilize these extensions that are being made to your advantage. Now, either by completely ignoring them and just head it right for the site whilst you are outnumbering them, or by slowly picking them apart and using those angles against the defenders.
All right, FNATIC, find your pace before you might find yourself back even on a game where really at one point it was entirely yours to control. Okay, it's a game of 2 halves, but if I'm going to make comparisons to your performance improving from your defense last time, I can also make ones about your attack struggling a little bit more. Granted, Sandbox have used their timeout, and their biggest sort of deficit before that, and why they dropped so many rounds, seemed to be a lack of communication and coordination. Hopefully they've picked that up a little bit. I will still say the gun skill seems a bit tighter, a bit sharper from the guns of FNATIC so far. They're able to get themselves into these engagements and win them out, but those little hiding positions from Sandbox are what pulled them into the previous round. It's a map that does play itself well to that, though.
It is, and as the Gemini Replicator got quite a bit of ground cover right there, it is that first floor now slowly falling into the hands of FNATIC. Apart from still 1 or 2 roamers about, Good Boy playing with that pulse can give himself an early warning sign if he quickly checks the cardiac sensor to find out where these attackers are going to be coming from, because they should be droning this all out. Choppy is coming close around the corner, but have they checked that corner specifically?
Yes.
Now they have.
And yes, second drone. Where are you going to go, Good Boy, at this point? Into the engagement, takes care of Choppy whilst being actively droned. About to get sprayed through this wall, you assume. No, Mac pulls himself back because they also lost Lily in the same second. Didn't want to risk being caught out in a sort of scrappy engagement there. And that's, well, a huge blow for the side of FNATIC. They threw themselves here on what was going to be a pretty precise sort of idea of a roam clear. Got the call on that player. A bit of a swing movement there, and the good graces and a flourish of luck. And suddenly Sandbox, they're up in a position. There's a grenade that gets kicked a little bit too long. Shile finds Mag. In the meantime, they've lost their hard breach. They've lost their Iana. They are only down to Ramu in a 5 versus 1, and I think this is about to be 50 seconds stood on an AC vent.
Yes. That's exactly going to be it. He's going to send in some RC drones, but
yeah, why not?
You know, I don't think he's going to be doing much more than that. Bit of a misplay there from FNATIC whilst trying to isolate Good Boy. Got 2 drones out there. They knew exactly where he was going to be going. Either it was a missed call that led to the early demise of Choppy, or it was due to the fact that they weren't pushing in with 2 players from opposite sides. Also could have had someone already on the wall to go for a bit of a wall bang to at least drag out some of the attention away from Choppy. He's just watching it. No, exactly, he's going to be on top of that hatch. There's nothing going to be happening. 1 more to send, 15 seconds to run out.
Where's he going to go, Rami?
He's just doing some parkour, you know. Trying to send it over to the other hatch.
It's not going to make it. It's not going to make it. Didn't make it.
No, didn't make it. Not enough time. Time runs out. That's going to be 4-4. Equalize the scoreline here. Yeah, 50 seconds to just discuss what went wrong and see if they can instantly implement some improvements on these rounds. Because again, Good Boy down below in the throne room, playing that perfectly, but he should have been punished for it. If there was a second player of FNATIC to come in from the opposite side, if there was only a player ready in either barrels or maintenance to start for a bit of a wallbang as soon as the spots came through, it would have been game over, Goodboy would have been dead, and you would not have lost 2 players to that, chase on trying to take him down, and a third one later down the line. And it's these little disconnects that we saw in Sandbox earlier on that now start to show signs for FNATIC.
We're starting to get a game on.
It is.
We're starting to get a game on here a little bit. It hasn't really felt like both teams have shown up to the same round. It's strange because, I guess with this current meta, what we've sort of got used to is both teams have had a lot of, or both sides have had a lot of bite.
Yeah.
Usually it's not as defined by the sort of history of defender and attacker sided. Modern meta Siege has always been a little bit fluid, which I've loved.
What was the name we gave to it? Flexible meta?
Yeah, flex meta. This game is strange because it's just when one team is showing up, it doesn't feel like the other team is. It's really just a sort of...
It's like only one team can show up.
Yeah,
by rules.
and it gives me hints of older Siege where it's a little bit more sort of defined, but it's not really. It's just this strange sort of thing where when one of them's able to... It's like they keep borrowing that extra bit of power from each other.
Just trading it out, Mom said it's my turn to get the extra power.
Yeah, Mom said it was my turn to get the extra 20% in this round.
Yeah, exactly. And as we see these hatches on the top being taken out, again, FNATIC need to be working themselves structurally towards the site to make sure that, first of all, the roamers are gone, you have control of what you need to have control of before you can start attacking the site, and then you start isolating those players on the site. So that starts off, of course, by taking that bottom floor under control, maybe using some grenades from a bottom up to see if you can isolate 1 or 2 players, maybe onto the arcade balcony, maybe onto the yellow stairs. And after that, you can start pushing towards Berg and Daycare and go into initiation from there on.
They bleed their way into Cafe and into the first engagement. I mean, Goodboy sort of fell into that one there. Hasn't quite been able to have the success. Choppy finds their first. Since the rehost, over a couple of rounds, they had big impact on their defense. They've sort of been a bit of a missing factor here over the couple of attacks we've had so far. So you got to see if they can sort of try and turn that into a little bit more of a tour de force. Jibbisu takes a bit of a scrap and a scrape of damage as they go for the clear steadily across the top. They've got Mag on the far end as well. The pressure onto the swing shield. Lily is also on the break room window. Both of them stacked up and ready for a fight. A little bit of a missed fire there and a little bit of a missed moment there. Arakaze, he knows his time is coming. He's wasting as much of it as possible. He's hoping to see if he can try and get one before he has to go. Envy Taylor's here to offer some support. The shield goes down, as does the player. There's Envy Taylor now with the lock-in on the side here of... Ooh! Jibisu's head removed there. They had an idea, but Jibisu didn't have the angle.
Bit of payback, for when Jibisu was able to find 2 kills onto the cash room. Now loses his life in a similar way, a very tight pixel angle where he gets taken out from. And that puts FNATIC back onto 4 versus 4. For a second there, Sean got stuck into the rotation. Nobody's just trying to not make too much noise. Listen for a second as the drones start jumping because it seems like the full attack is coming from the Bunk and Daycare side just momentarily from now.
Wow, with Envy Taylor and Static still on the board, that's the sort of danger factor here because those two have massively stepped up in the gun game. Shyle suffers a little bit. I think Choppy was on the other end of that engagement. Arakaze, do they know? Oh, it doesn't matter. There's a bit of a fight, but look at the timer, 10 seconds. And there's one more for Arakaze round on the back stairs, taking care of Arcade. Static is able to keep himself surviving with another double. I believe he's on about 6 kills to no deaths since the rehost. And this is something that they desperately needed.
It is something they need to retake control of this game to find themselves looking towards a top 2 spot at the end of the day, because that is what it's all about here in APAC. But that's also what this game is going to be about, because we said it before, whoever loses this is going to be finding themselves in a pretty dire situation to still try and make it back into the top 2 position. And as they have just done it, they've gone for a full rotation. They'll be headed back towards the throne room. And I just wanted to say, they knew exactly where Arakaze was coming from. There was drones. You heard the pings going down.
Yeah, you had the pings. You saw them.
But if you're on your game, if you're sharp enough...
It's the thing. I guess it's what it felt like earlier. Like 2 rounds ago, even on the lead on their first attack, it still felt... like Fnatic were ahead in the gun game. They seemed a bit sharp. That first round, those 1 versus 1s, you know, like the one that Good Boy scuffed a little bit in Cafe, and the fight that we had round on the opposite side as well, it just felt like Fnatic were a bit sharper. And then recently,
10 seconds to go.
I don't know what magic source Sandbox have been able to find. It's working.
That's the thing with Siege, right? You can have the best drone network in the world, but if you're not hitting your shots, you're not going to be able to win that round in the end. So you need to make sure that you fully capitalize of that information. And there are 2 instances of 1v1s going the other way, and, you know, time running low. There's nothing you can do anymore at that moment in time. And there's a lot of Capcom traps are being set up. We have Ramu onto the Amaru. Wondering if there's going to be a Gara hook ride into the building, or if it's going to be used differently, because there's not really any hatch you can get up on to get into the bomb site here.
Sandbox. They're going to see if they can try and keep this momentum up. They've had it locked in. I mean, what, between MV Taylor and Static, what was historically and recently a bit of a backline for the team, they've found themselves a solid structure of 11-1. Which is a huge spout of numbers over about 4 rounds worth. Here, Chibisu. They're going to see if they can try and shake some of the branches, see what falls out. It's a spray through a soft wall. They get scraped a little bit. Good Boy pulls himself back, has some of the support of Arakaze. They have the drop of the hatch, and they also have Shio playing underneath as well. Do they know that Arcade Window is being watched? Ooh, they're drifting dangerously close to it. Now they do.
And this is the thing for Sandbox, right? They can waste as much time as they want on the top floor as long as they stay alive. They do not have to take these gunfights with their lives. You just make your pressure known, and you leave. Because now they need to drone it all out. Now they need to use the utility. They have to find out whether or not someone is still going to be on the top floor. If they are finding themselves in adjacent rooms towards the bomb sites, and that is going to be taking you time. This is going to be another like last 30 seconds push coming down from Fnatic due to the fact that there is 3 players currently offside, and they need to clear those out first, otherwise it's going to bite them.
This is what I talked about before, the drop on the hatch. They've not taken it this time because it is being watched. The pings are on the player on the far end. You can see Mag is hoping they drift their way around, but they also sent another player to offer some support here. Fnatic are chasing ghosts and suffering because of it. The cap can on the door on the route round catches out Choppy. Oh, the man can see players but could not see that. Mag at least finds one back for them. I think they were still waiting patiently on the opposite side. There is more players playing underneath here. There's the tuck round, the attempt on the breach, 30 seconds, a ripped C4. He knows what's about to come through, but he cannot quite get out of the way of it. They now lose their direct hard breach. They've used the pocket ones elsewhere. They've got to see if they can just try and fight through what they've got open now with only 15 seconds. It's going to be doors, and it's going to be 3 very aggressive gunfights from the 3 remaining players, different angles. Lily's still on the second story. There's Ramu getting one on Split. There's Split biting back. MV Taylor caught from above though. Lily, he drops down from the top hatch. It's 2 versus 1 versus 1. Sprinting towards the last player. Cannot quite make it. Didn't quite know where he was. And Sandbox go up to map point.
You saw it there. He actually went for the swing with what he thought was the pistol, but he had the gun 6 in hand, couldn't go for the challenge that way, had to swap back, lost some valuable seconds out there. But again, Fnatic, as I said, the last 30 seconds, that's when they start hitting the side because it's just not clear enough. They just don't have the control. And it's not enough, especially if you lose your heart breach in the way they did. You're not opening up that wall. That's going to stay closed. All you can do is walk into doors which have crossfires set up by Sandbox. And Sandbox, they've brought this back perfectly. And now Fnatic with their tactical timeout. They're 45 seconds to talk. There's only 15 left. See if they can make the difference now, because they've lost the points, but there's still 2 to be gained. And if they've managed to find those, head-to-head is the first tiebreaker in APAC as the only region in the world currently. Which means that if they win this, they will be above Sandbox based on head-to-head, not on points.
Bam, bam. Bam, 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 bam.
Is that dramatic music?
Bam, bam. Yeah, it's a little bit of drama. A little bit early morning drama for you. Fnatic take the time out. they've had their conversation here. They can only really take scuffed points at this point, and scuffed points can be deadly in a race where only 2 people are able to get their way out. It has been the difference maker. It can be the difference maker once again, when we've also generally not had many teams find themselves falling into overtime. Obviously, FNATIC and Reject are the 2 that are sort of close to it. But outside of that, really, it's becoming a bit of a curse.
Also, like, I wish they would have called this tactical timeout in that last round, where they still had the full rotation to revisit again, have a little bit of a chat, like, okay, for this side, we can do this differently, for that side, this, blah, blah. Because then at least you have that extra wiggle room. You could have still lost a round. If they lose 1 round now, the next 2, it's going to be over. It's going to be full 3 points for Sandbox, and they know that as well. The pressure is mounting up for FNATIC. And Sandbox have done everything they needed to do with picking up those 2 attacking rounds. That is just what it's about. I said it before as well, 2 is what they'll all be happy with. For now, it seems like even 2 might be too much. 1 could have maybe even done the job here.
Oh, that is not the way to start it. Lily caught out. Static swung around on the bathroom window, takes an early victim and takes flight. Gets out of there before anyone else is in a position to strike. They're trying to force their way through elsewhere. Choppy being, in a way, hot droned in by Chibisu. But the Gemini Replicator does not quite pick up anyone else. They've pulled themselves away. If we recall, there was a player here that caused a lot of problems, and, well, for everything FNATIC did to try and hunt them down, this time there is nobody in that position. They are still this body down situation. 2 minutes. Plenty of time to try and restructure on the back of that early disaster. They still have some of the stretch underneath, and they're setting up the drones to keep an eye on it. There was a flank that was pretty devastating on the back end, and now everything is to play for.
Not really giving themselves an opportunity to be flanked here as they're attacking the site head on. They just need to find a way to get rid of the player onto the arcade stairs and the arcade balcony. If they manage to find those 2 kills, suddenly everything opens up. But I believe someone just walked up on the scaffolding right there. Right next to that soft wall. Chibisu has no clue. As soon as he makes noise, that is going to be at least some form of pressure coming down from the alibi here.
Well, the alibi is making a little bit of noise, but they've pulled themselves back round and rotated off. Nobody was opting for that. And look at this. There's that noise being responded to. Choppy fires through. Opens up a bit of an angle. Just sees the tail end, but MV Taylor just strikes back in time. Well, at least in time to get revenge, to be honest. You probably preferred it if you're good boy a second earlier. Then they rotate down. They've headed back down the stairs. They're keeping themselves mobile, keeping FNATIC guessing, keeping their drone intel a little bit out of date. Arcade stairs is still locked in. Romu's going to see if he can try and maybe start to apply some pressure onto the site, around the back of train. There's about to be a swing. There it is. There's 2 bodies, though. Spoiled for choice and now spoiled out of the round itself. Romu's going to dig round the corner, puts the fight in. Chile has something else to say about it. Chibisu gets Arakaze in the meantime. 40 seconds, and the fight now is finding its way around onto initiation. The opposite side checks for Capcan traps. They know the suffering that has happened before. It's the 2 versus 2 situation. Arcade stairs is a little bit out of the fight at this point. They're playing from a bit of range. Chibisu's on the back, knows roughly where Shile was. They're still tucked around on the door. There's the yellow pings. Now knows exactly where Shile is. You see him a pre-fire around the corner. There it is. Takes one pretty easily. The 2 versus 1, and Arcade Stars has to act now. They're trying to swing themselves around, hoping they go behind the shield at this point. Oh, they pull off just at the worst possible time round on the back end. They're able to get the fight onto 1. It's now a 1 versus 1 through the soft. Does a lot of damage. Does a little bit more. Cannot quite get the full connection. 40 seconds. Time for a reload. Want to be gifted. More pre-fires, more angles. They're popped around. There it is! Static with a monumental 10-1 over the past 5 rounds. Carries it home. And, well, Sandbox from kind of nothing, bring it back to everything, all 3 points.
That Rios was a wake-up call for Static, because suddenly he seemed to have been unstoppable there, and Sandbox, they take the full 3 points. With that, they basically cover off FNATIC for the rest of the stage. They have the head-to-head over them now. They have 4 points as well, with 2 more playdays to go. Now they need to make sure that they stay in this position and assure themselves that they can maybe qualify for the major again.
It was a rough end of the day there for the sides of FNATIC. They had such a good, strong opener, but still, unfortunately, a couple of problems plagued them throughout it. Sandbox kind of remembered who they were, most of them at least, the old guns popping off and buying Good Boy a little bit of a breather for a performance. But before that, we'll be with a break and then the desk.